Okay, so you're looking to really get up to speed on something important, yeah.
Right.
Maybe for work, or just, keeping current in a field, or maybe you're just curious and want to get it without wading through tons of dense stuff.
You want those aha moments, but without the headache.
Exactly. And that's what we're doing today. We're taking a deep dive into a really key area in education research. We'll break it down, make it clear.
And the topic today is something pretty fundamental. How the connection between teachers and students really shapes motivation, especially in secondary school.
Yeah, high school years.
Exactly.
hmm
So whether you're involved in education policy or maybe just trying to understand teenagers better, we think you'll find this really interesting.
And we've based this on some serious groundwork. We're looking at a big systematic review. It
Mm.
covers international motivation research, specifically from 2010 up to 2023.
And it wasn't just a few studies. They looked at, was it 237 studies?
237, yeah. But here's the stat that jumped out at me across all those studies. They found 222 unique ways that teacher-student relationships were measured.
Wow. 220.
Yeah. That alone tells you, okay, this isn't as simple as it sounds. There's complexity here.
Absolutely. That variety in measurement is a huge part of the story. So our mission today really is to pull out the key nuggets from this review. How are these relationships understood? How are they measured when we're talking adolescent motivation?
And we'll hit on some surprising things, maybe some potential issues in the research itself.
Definitely some pitfalls to be aware of.
Okay, let's get into it. So, the review kicks off confirming something most people probably feel is true. Good teacher-student relationships. Really important for kids.
Right, the basics.
Yeah, like enjoying school more, setting higher goals for themselves, even sticking it out and finishing secondary school. The research between 2010 and 2023 consistently shows this link.
Seems straightforward enough on the surface.
It does, doesn't it? But here's the twist. While everyone agrees they're important, the review found that when you try to nail down exactly what makes a positive relationship in secondary school, well, it's a bit of a mess.
Yeah, they called it a somewhat fractured conceptual and theoretical landscape. Other researchers have pointed this out too.
It's that aha moment, right? Something seemingly obvious is actually quite tangled underneath.
Totally. It's not clearly defined.
And it made me think, research on younger kids, like early childhood, primary school, seems a bit more aligned. They often use frameworks like attachment theory pretty consistently.
That's a good point. The review mentions that too. There's more of a common ground there.
So does attachment theory just disappear when kids get older?
Not entirely. It definitely still shows up in adolescent studies. The review cites a few. But it seems when the focus shifts specifically to motivation in teenagers, researchers tend to gravitate more towards motivation theories themselves.
Okay, which leads to another tension of the review flags. These motivation theories, and we're talking big names here, the review lists them, they often acknowledge relationships matter. But the critique is they don't always offer a really detailed picture of what that relationship is.
Exactly. They might say, yeah, connection is important for need satisfaction or something like that, but they don't deeply define the connection part in the school context.
So they see the effect of the relationship on motivation, but maybe not the relationship itself.
Kind of. Their focus is more on the why relationships boost motivation, the mechanisms, rather than pinning down the nature of the relationship for secondary students. That's the core problem this review gets at.
Okay, so established importance, but fuzzy definition. Got it. Now, the review then dives into another layer of confusion.
Uh-huh.
The way the terms teacher-student relationships and teacher support get used almost like interchangeably.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
But they're not exactly the same thing, are they?
No, not really. And the review really puts a spotlight on this blurring. Think of teacher support as more about the actions, what the teacher does to help students develop.
Like giving feedback, offering help with homework, emotional backup, that kind of thing.
Exactly. The review mentions studies focusing on social, academic, emotional support, specific teacher behaviors.
Right. But relationships, that feels like it should be more about the overall dynamic, the interaction.
Precisely. Relationships imply that back and forth, the perceptions both ways. It's a system, as one researcher put it.
A two-way street.
Yeah. But the review found studies constantly citing relationship findings to back up points about support and the other way around.
Huh.
And even systematic reviews sometimes lump both terms together without clearly distinguishing. It's a real methodological tangle.
It really is. And the review made a point about measurement being key here, right? Because with teenagers, we often rely on their reports.
Yes, student self-reports are huge in this area.
So what they perceive is central. If we want to sort out support, what teachers do, from the relationship, the connection, we need to be super clear about what we're asking them.
Absolutely, which takes us right into the measurement landscape itself. And this is where the scale of the inconsistency really hits you.
Okay, lay it on us.
Remember that number, 222 unique measures across 237 studies.
Still staggering.
And get this, 175 of those measures used only once.
Wow. So basically, everyone's kind of inventing their own wheel.
It certainly looks that way sometimes. The review argues this lack of measurement consensus probably reflects that deeper lack of conceptual agreement we talked about.
Makes sense. Are there any common ways of framing it?
Well, yes, the terms teacher-student relationships and teacher support were the most frequent labels, each used in 82 studies, so they're dominant framings.
Okay, but even within those labels, how they actually measured them varied a lot.
Hugely. And another finding was that many studies, 176 of them, just looked at one single construct.
Like one overall score for relationship quality or something.
Yeah, or they used what the review called collapsed factors,
Yeah.
basically averaging different things together, or they just had one scale mixing positive and negative items.
Sounds like you could lose a lot of detail that way.
You absolutely could. If you don't separate out, say, the warmth from the conflict, you miss the nuance.
Yeah.
Different parts of a relationship might affect motivation differently.
And speaking of conflict, that brings up another point that really stood out to me from the review.
The negative side.
Exactly. How few studies actually bothered to measure the negative stuff. Less than 19% looked at negative aspects.
They're pretty low.
And even measures that could capture negativity often just focused on the positive. Things like outright unfairness or hostility, super rare. Only 9 studies explicitly measured those.
That feels like a major gap, doesn't it?
Hey, it really does. Like maybe the research leans towards a slightly too rosy picture.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just harder to measure. But either way, if negative interactions happen, and they do, and strongly impact motivation, we're missed a big piece by not studying them more.
Yeah, definitely blind spot. Okay, something else the review discussed was, how do they put it? The social referent groups.
Ah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Who the student is thinking about when they answer.
Yeah. Is it my specific math teacher to me that feels very personal, dietic? Or is it my teachers in general to me? That's more of an average.
Or even this teacher to us, meaning the whole class.
Right. It seems like who you're asking about fundamentally changes what you're measuring.
It really does. And relationship theories often stress that dyadic one-on-one bond.
But how common was that in the actual measures?
Well, the review found only about 44% of the unique measures focused specifically on that single teacher and student pair.
Okay, so less than half.
Yeah. And asking about teachers generally, that average perspective, my teachers to me, was also pretty common, almost 28% of measures.
Which I guess reflects the reality of secondary school. You have lots of teachers, but methodologically.
Exactly. If you're asking about the group or an average, it might tell you about the classroom climate or the overall school environment, which is valuable.
But maybe not about that specific crucial relationship with one teacher that might be making all the difference for a particular student.
Precisely. And there's a statistical issue, too. The review pointed out that when you use those averaged or group-level measures, ideally you should use multi-level analysis to account for shared environments, like students in the same class.
Okay.
But they found that kind of analysis was only used in about 14% of studies.
Oh. So there's often a mismatch between the level of the question and the level of the analysis.
Often, yeah. Asking about the group, but analyzing as if it's just individual perception.
Yeah.
That can muddy the interpretation. Are we seeing an individual effect or a group effect?
This just gets more tangled. Okay, this next bit really got me.
Uh-oh.
The review found 26 different measurement tools
Okay.
that were used to measure different things in different studies. Like the same questionnaire was labeled relationship in one study and maybe classroom climate in another.
Right. Not quite that extreme, maybe, but yes, used for different interpersonal framings. And even more directly, they found 7 popular measures that were explicitly used sometimes to measure teacher-student relationships and other times to measure teacher support.
The exact same measure for both.
The exact same measure. The review lists them some well-known scales from researchers like Martin and Marsh, the PISA surveys, the Katia Teacher Support Scale, instruments people use regularly.
Wow. So researchers are literally using the same questions but calling the concept different things.
Effectively, yes.
Yeah.
Which really underlines that blurring we talked about.
So what happened when the review actually looked inside those measures at the actual questions?
This is the kicker. They looked closely at the items, the specific questions asked, and basically, they couldn't see any meaningful conceptual difference between the items in the scales labeled relationship and those labeled support.
Really?
Yeah, they all tended to ask about similar themes. Does the teacher care about you? Are they interested in you? Can you depend on them? Do they help you? Are they fair?
So despite the different labels,
At the item level, where the student is actually responding, the distinction pretty much vanished.
that's a huge aha moment. It suggests the theoretical debate between relationship and support isn't really reflected in how we're often measuring them on the ground.
Exactly. It screams for a reevaluation of these measurement practices if we want real clarity.
Okay, so it seems like much of the research captures a general sense of positive teacher interaction, but struggles with the finer distinctions. What about the theories driving the research questions? Did the review find patterns there?
They did look at that. They checked if studies grounded their hypotheses, mainly in relational theories, like attachment or relatedness, or mainly in motivation theories, or if they tried to integrate both.
And what was the split?
Interestingly, a good chunk, 79 studies, relied only on relational theories. Another 46 relied only on motivation theories.
And integrated both.
Much rarer. Only 17 studies really tried to bring both perspectives together explicitly in their framing.
That seems odd. Like you'd need both to understand how relationships influence motivation.
You'd think so.
Yeah.
It suggests maybe a bit of siloing in the research community.
Was there one dominant theory?
Self-determination theory, SDT, came up most often. 71 studies used it somehow. And SDT does talk about relatedness as a basic need.
Right, the need to feel connected.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Even when studies invoked SDT, the review found they often didn't really operationalize or measure relatedness specifically. Only 8 studies really focused their measurement purely on relatedness itself.
So they use the theory, but don't always measure its core relational component.
It seems that way sometimes, a potential disconnect between the theory cited and the measures used.
And what about attachment theory? We said it was less prominent than in younger kids' research.
Right. The review confirmed that. While it might get mentioned in the introduction of papers, it was only central to the actual hypotheses in 12 studies.
So maybe a shift away from it when studying teens and motivation.
Potentially, yeah. Maybe researchers feel other constructs are more direct drivers of motivation in adolescents.
Did the review check if certain measures were used consistently for specific motivation outcomes? Like, if you're studying academic anxiety, do researchers tend to use measure X for the relationship part?
They looked into that briefly.
Any patterns?
Not really. They didn't find strong evidence that researchers consistently pair specific relationship or support measures with specific motivation concepts like self-efficacy or anxiety.
So even within sub-areas of motivation research, there isn't a standard approach to measuring the relational side.
Seems not. It reinforces that overall picture of, well, a lack of a unified framework.
Okay, so pulling all this together, this deep dive into the research landscape reveals a lot of inconsistency. What are the big recommendations coming out of this review for researchers going forward?
They offer some clear, actionable advice. Number one is really pushing for consensus
On what exactly?
on the acceptable use of measures. We need more agreement on which tools are genuinely tapping into teacher-student relationships versus teacher support. More clarity, more shared standards.
Yeah, that seems fundamental. If everyone's using different rulers, it's hard to compare lengths. What else?
They strongly advocate for using multivariate approaches,
Meaning?
meaning don't just get one overall score. Look at different dimensions separately. Measure the positive stuff and the negative stuff as distinct factors. Get a more detailed picture.
Right. Because a relationship isn't just one thing. It can be warm and conflicted, potentially.
Exactly. That nuance matters for understanding motivation. And tied to that is paying way more attention to the configuration.
The who we talked about, dyadic, group, average.
Precisely. Be clear about whether you're measuring the one-on-one connection, the class dynamic, or the general teacher environment. And crucially, match your statistics to your measurement.
Use multi-level models if you're asking about groups or averages.
Yes, align the analysis with the level of measurement. Avoid that mismatch we discussed.
Makes sense. Any other big ones?
They suggest drawing a clearer conceptual line between relationships, maybe reserving that for the dyadic, bidirectional stuff, and teacher support, which could capture more of the teacher behaviors and environmental resources, perhaps using those broader plural measures.
So be more precise with the terms based on how you're measuring.
Kinda, yeah. And they also suggest researchers need to critically look at some commonly used tools.
Like which ones?
They specifically mention the 2000 PIASA measure and the QTI, suggesting maybe they aren't ideal if your goal is really to understand that specific one-on-one dyadic relationship, giving questions about how well they capture that nuance.
Interesting. So even established tools need scrutiny depending on the specific research question.
Definitely. And finally, they call for more work on developing better measures specifically for adolescents, focusing on things that might be really key for them, like instrumental practical learning support and trust within the relationship.
So better tools for the job, basically.
Better, more specific tools, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so wrapping this up. The big picture seems to be everyone agrees these relationships are super important for teen motivation.
Absolutely critical consensus on importance.
But UT, how we actually define them, and especially how we measure them, is kind of all over the place.
Yeah, significant inconsistencies. The overlap with teacher support, ignoring the negative side, the confusion over dyadic versus group level, it creates a really murky research landscape.
And the so what for listeners is that this lack of clarity isn't just academic navel-gazing, right? It actually matters.
It really does. It impacts how well we truly understand what helps kids stay motivated and engaged. If our research tools are blunt or inconsistent, our insights will be too. It affects how we design interventions, how we train teachers.
Yeah, if we can't accurately measure the active ingredient in a good relationship, it's hard to know how to foster it effectively.
Exactly. So while the general idea, be positive with students,
Hmm.
is obviously good advice, the specifics of what relational dynamics are most motivating and how to reliably track them, still very much being worked out.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How much are these subtle differences in terminology and measurement actually shaping what we think we know about teenagers in school?
That's a great question to ponder. Are the tools limiting the view?
Yeah. Are we seeing the whole picture or just the picture our current methods allow us to see?
That's a really provocative thought to leave with. How might our ways of talking and measuring be constructing our understanding? Hopefully this dive gives people a good foundation to think more about that or to dig deeper into specific theories or measures if they're interested.
For sure, it's clearly a field with a lot going on and still plenty to figure out.
Definitely. A rich area
Right.
and still evolving.